Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we take on the tough issues. We talk about all those things to improve the customer experience at your store, whether it's the front of the house, the back of the house, or anywhere in between. The better we all get at taking care of the customers and improving the customer experience, the better for everybody, and our business just thrives, even in non-propped up economies. So we're benefiting from some things right now that are setting records, but beware, because stuff like that does not last forever, and it does have future ramifications. So this week, I welcome to our show Mr. Mr. George. He is with ASE, and he knows a thing or two about the car business, and he's going to share some of those nuggets with us today. So welcome, George.
Thanks for having me. Happy Sunday evening, everybody.
Oh, before we get started, I just want to say a special thank you to Ed Chipalowsky. Ed Chipalowsky is who made this all possible. He said, you know, I know this guy, George Arrants. He's with ASE, and I think that you and he would get along quite famously, and that led to a phone call that George and I had, and it's like two guys that went to different schools together. We just clicked from minute one. A couple of old guys in the car business, and you know, ASE has special memories for me because when I ran my aftermarket repair shops, I too did all of my ASE certifications. And today on Facebook, a memory came up that I want to share with you guys. Some of you have seen it before, so my apologies up front. Others have not, and you might get a kick out of this. So this goes back a few years. It's when I actually had hair, but I also had all of my ASE certifications, so do enjoy. And it's about customer service too, which is why I'm so passionate about it.
Dear Midas, one morning, I noticed my car was pulling, so I took it to a tire store for an alignment. And after 3 separate attempts, they couldn't get it right. I went to Midas for help. Your manager,
hi, I'm Paul Meijer,
and his staff spent all the time necessary to identify and correct the alignment. Paul said,
we don't want you to leave until you're extremely happy.
Which I am. Sincerely, Anthony Nista.
All right, so that's what I had here, and I had all of my ASE certifications. So, George, for those folks that might not know who this George Arrants guy is, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and then how you got to this point today?
Sure. I started off as an automotive technician, actually a mechanic. First job was a gas station in North Brunswick, New Jersey, an Exxon station. And then from there, moved to Texas in 1979, worked in a few dealerships, worked different places, worked my way up through the industry, started teaching at the age of 23 or 24, taught for a few years, left teaching, went into working for a private technical school in Laramie, Wyoming, left there and did some other stuff. Moved to Charlotte for a short period of time, moved back to Texas, worked with a major tool company for a few years or many years. And my job was not to sell tools, but more importantly, to form partnerships between industry and education and help schools achieve something that used to be called NATEF certification, which is now ASE accreditation, which accredits automotive, collision, and medium heavy-duty truck programs at the high school and college level across the country. Then worked for ASE a few years back full-time. In between then, had some great memories. I was a guest of the government of Oman. If you are geographically challenged like I am, it's between Yemen and Emirates on the Persian Gulf. I was a guest of the Minister of Manpower and spent a week over there evaluating their automotive programs. And the same things they're having problems with halfway around the world, we are here in the U.S. It's no different. It's truly the same. And then under President Bush's high growth job training initiative through the U.S. Department of Labor, I chaired the strategic development team for the automotive high growth, which received about $13.4 million in grants. I, along with Gateway Technical College and some other folks, received a grant for $900,000 to upgrade the nation's automotive programs. And that was all to help grow the quality of the programs, train instructors, and form partnerships between industry and education. So a lot of my career is working with schools and industry and getting them to work together to solve what people call a technician shortage, but I just call a lack of qualified applicants.
Wow. If you were in the military, your lapel thing here would be full with stuff, because that is quite the background. And today's show is very, very important, okay? Because we've all heard this time and time again, and this will benefit everybody because it will challenge your conventional thinking on what it means to attract, cultivate, hire, and retain technicians for your shop. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but there was an article on LinkedIn recently by Dan Shine, and in his article he says, according to Carlisle and Company, it is estimated that losing one tech cost a typical store $172,000 in lost revenue, hiring/lost productivity costs associated with finding a replacement. That's huge. That's just one. You know, you look at a shop where they have 80 techs.
Yep.
What's that cost if you're not out of it?
Or if you're a major fleet. I'd also work with the heavy truck industry. I missed a meeting I wasn't invited to 17 years ago. Don't ever do that. I got voluntold to run a national competition for professional diesel technicians called Super Tech. But let's be honest, if you have multiple stores and you have, 200, 300, 1,000 employees, and you got a high turnover rate, or do you even know what your turnover rate is? Sometimes the problem's you.
Yeah.
You're eating our young. If you don't think that there's interest in our industry, you're in a rabbit hole. Yeah, you're in a rabbit hole or got your head in a tree or something. This generation is interested in working with their hands in many of the occupations. Many of our what used to be called vocational education programs, now CTE, those programs are full or have waiting lists, especially the good ones. And the misconception is this generation doesn't want to work with their hands. That's not true at all. And the first thing I ask employers that say they've got a technician shortage, I say, do you have a shortage of applicants or do you have a shortage of qualified applicants?
Bingo.
90%.
Big difference.
A big difference. 90% nearly say, well, we got a shortage of qualified applicants. Two different problems. And if you have a quality issue and there's consistencies in the reason you're not hiring these people and you're not involved in your local school telling them what those concerns are so they can make adjustments in the curriculum or the program, shame on you. You're kind of wasting your tax dollars. You're spending all that tax dollars for those programs to exist, and you're not getting anything out of the pond, but you have the answers of what could change that product that they're producing to actually be a good place for you to fish. You know what I mean?
Oftentimes the problem is right in front of us, but for whatever reasons, we fail to see it. Now, I want to get to a couple of comments before we go too far. Ed Chipalowsky starts us off with, good evening, Paul and George. Good evening, Ed, and thank you again for this introduction, man. This was awesome.
Thank you, Ed. Happy 4th of July, my friend.
A happy 4th of July to everybody out there. Yep. Paul Machine, brother Paul. Paul and I were on the phone earlier today when I was on the elliptical. He was at the grill, and I was on the elliptical. Russell B. Hill, good evening, gentlemen. Let's unpack this show. Michael Larkin says, happy 4th early. And Paul Machine says, happy 4th all. Mike Vogel, Russell B. Hill, you sure get around. And Mike Vogel says, good evening, Paul, and welcome, George. Looking forward to your insights on technicians. And Russell B. Hill says, LOL, Mike, thank you. I try to absorb as much as I can from everyone I surround myself with. You know what? If you become a sponge, you soak up a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. You have to be open-minded.
You have to be. And, one of my philosophies are egos are fat free and we need to swallow them. It's not about me. You've
Yeah.
got to bury that ego, because a lot of times that ego doesn't allow you to see the forest through the trees and find out that the problem is you or the people around you. And earlier on when we were talking about it, in ASE accredited programs, we have about 2,200 accredited programs across the country. We only make up about 45%. This school year, we impacted, are you ready for this? Over 126,000 students. That's right, I didn't stutter. Over 126,000 students were taking auto collision and truck programs in this country that were accredited. So that relates to probably 250,000 students interested in transportation trades in one way or another. Does that sound like a shortage to me?
Not to
No.
me.
Nope. But if you don't onboard them correctly, or they don't have the right skill sets, or you just throw them to the wolves and expect them to be productive, you're part of the problem. You're eating our young.
Now, turnover rate seems to be something that's fairly high in a lot of industries, and we're certainly not immune. In
Nope.
the restaurant industry, I think it was 105%, within the last couple of years or so. I'm not sure what the number is on automotive, but it's obviously high enough that it's something we always talk about.
Yep.
I mean, how many people even really know what their turnover rate is?
And here's what's sad is most of these business people are sharp business people and they're data driven, but pieces of data like this escape them. And by not following this type of data and see what's going on in your business with your most important asset, your people, that's kind of scary. And that is a problem. And what is a comfortable turnover rate in your organization? You have to figure out what's comfortable for you. But also, what does it cost you to actually hire somebody? You woke up this morning and say, I need this person in the shop. How long does it take? How many people are involved? How many candidates? All the other things until you put them on the shop floor. And then the moment you put them on the shop floor, you wipe your hands and go back to doing whatever you're doing and hope they swim. And many of them do not. Through surveys we've done, we lose 20% at graduation and another 21% in the first 2 years. That's
Wait a minute,
41.
wait a minute. Hold on a second. Did you say we lose 20% at graduation? That means they come out of school to go into this,
And don't.
and 1 out of 5 says, I'm out.
I'm out.
Holy
And
shit, that's huge.
and it could be right. And it could be for multiple reasons. One, they don't have the skill set that employer needs, or they've all of a sudden showed up and said, wow, this is not what I expected, or they decided to go off into a different pathway. The scary part, though, is we lose a lot in the first 2 years. And what does that mean? That means you hired them, you went through all of that expense, but you did nothing to onboard them into your shop culture. You did no mentoring. You didn't bring them on to show them how you do things. Let me give you the scenario that I hear constantly. We hired this kid right out of this high-powered tech school. He rolls in his brand new red toolbox. Put him on a job the first day and he screwed it up. Really? Did he screw it up, or did he just do it different than you? Was he trained a certain way and you've circumvented that process to get the customer's vehicle out? Or was there anybody in your organization to say, hey, this is how we do it. Here's the special tools. No. And then all of a sudden you're mad at him, he's mad at you, and off he goes. And the sad part is when they leave our industry. They still go into industries that require them to work with their hands. They just don't stay with us. Even if we were brought up that you have to sweep floors for 2 weeks until you can do anything, those days are gone. These young people invested in their education, and you need to onboard them. But also, you need to make sure that your shop culture is not caustic. If you can't see your children or grandchildren working in your shop, neither can I.
These are not just run-of-the-mill people that are coming out of a program here. Essentially, these are electromechanical engineers today.
Yep.
That have invested a serious chunk of money to
Yep.
get an education that goes beyond what most people can comprehend today.
Not only that, they spent all the money on their education, and invested their time, and they invested a fair amount of money in a starter set of tools, only for
Fair?
you to just go whack.
I would say fair would be a conservative statement, because I
It
have
would be.
my Snap-on rollaway box, and I didn't have the giant one. I still
That's right.
have it today in the basement of our home.
Yep.
You know, the top and the bottom box, all Snap-on tools. I'm
Yep.
a fan of Snap-on because I've
Me
never
too.
had a problem, and if I did have a problem, they would swap it off for me, no questions asked.
Yep.
So I bet it's in the tens of thousands of dollars today with what they invest in tools. We got a couple of comments from Mike Vogel. Says not enough dealerships have developed a plan to include what does a technician's career path look like, and why should I join your team? In parentheses, what's in it for me?
That's the what's in it for me. I talk about that all the time. So first of all, that is a great question or quote. We did a survey of high school students and in the automotive, collision, and truck. And the number one reason for them not taking the next course offered in succession was no defined career path. How sad is that? That means either the person in the classroom, the curriculum, or the local business and industry are not coming in and being a guest speaker. And when we talk about career path for this generation, different than ours, they're not looking for 10, 20 years. They're looking for what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months,
Yeah,
9 months, a year, 18
lay
months.
it out.
Lay it out. And all they want to know are the carrots and the sticks. Now, the other thing too is this generation doesn't have a problem with the carrots and the sticks. They have a problem with our interpretation or our implementation. And as my Spanish teacher from high school said, there are no consequences, there are no rules. And they're okay with the rules, long as those rules are the same for everybody.
Right.
Yep.
And the other interesting thing too is that, you know, when you say, okay, so the technician screwed it up, he did the job wrong, or maybe he did it a different way. When we've been in the business for a long time, we take shortcuts, right? And in
Yes.
those shortcuts, sometimes we miss things.
Yes.
Whereas the person coming out of school now has been taught a certain way, right? The people that teach this stuff, they're not amateurs. They
Nope.
know their business. So they
Correct.
teach things a certain way, a certain sequence, so that you don't miss a particular problem. So when we shortcut the process and we don't communicate what our expectations are, or we don't communicate on the same level, but we're going to miss things. And in the long run, one, we miss it with the employee.
Yep.
Because they don't feel valued, they don't feel respected. And we miss it insofar as if we're shortcutting them and we're teaching them bad habits right out of the gate, what does that say for long-term growth for that technician within our own environments?
And you make a great point, because if a student is in school, they're taught to use the service information, process and procedure.
Yeah.
And if you say, don't worry about that, this is how we do it, you miss steps.
Totally.
But when you hire a young person, do you look at it as an expense or an investment? And it
Bingo.
should be an investment. You're investing in this individual's future in your company. And
Our future.
Our future. And if you put them with a mentor, a qualified mentor, selected, not 8:30 in the morning because the kid's showing up at 9, that is motivated
You mean planning in advance?
planning. Yes,
Come on,
planning.
George. What are you trying
What a
to tell here,
concept.
man?
Yeah, what a concept. And so, but also what we have found is those students that are involved in some sort of work-based learning while they're in school stay with our industry for decades. Those that graduate on Friday and start on Tuesday, 41% in the first 2 years, 20% at graduation, another 21. And here's why. All they know is that shop class. That's it. But those kids that have been exposed to your dealership or your place of business and they've grown with your business and they fostered a loyalty. They know what to expect. So when they walk across the podium and get their diploma, the transition for them is seamless into your business and they stay for decades. The other thing I think employees forget is this generation and social media. You upset one young person, and how many people do they influence? It's unbelievable. And that's difficult. Also, it hurts your brand in general. And every one of us are a brand.
Yeah.
But it's building that relationship with your local school and growing your own workforce. It's an investment. Yes, if you look at it just as a cost, you might as well just hang up with me because we're not going to get anywhere. It's not a cost, it's an investment. And it's back to how much can these young people produce if they've been properly trained and mentored in your organization. And some of you out there, maybe it was part of the AYES program back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you started as an apprentice or an intern, and now you were a mentor or you're higher up or a master tech. But it was that person that guided you, that helped you get into our industry. And then some of you out there, you were thrown to the wolves, and some of us survived. Most of us didn't.
And in today's climate, we can't afford 41% defection rate within 2 years. And now, there are people that do this well, okay?
Yes. There are.
My friend's grandson, he's in Virginia. He just graduated, and there was a fair, an educational fair,
career fair,
and Audi picked this kid up, chose that kid to go into their training program. Now, this kid is super stoked about his future in the car business, his future as an electromechanical engineer, if you will, because that's what these people are today. You know, it's not like back in the day where we were rebuilding starters, putting in a new set of brushes, a Bendix drive. A lot of techs today don't even know what that means.
Not a clue.
They're used to changing the part. We rebuilt the part. We diagnosed the part, and we rebuilt the pieces that were contained within that part. And so there are some companies doing it well. And this kid, he's excited about what he's going to learn. He's excited about getting into the car business. This is a kid that's going to, you know, if cultivated properly, he will do well. He will excel. He will do well for the stores that he ends up in, and he will do well for our business. And he will not be part of that 41%. I mean, how many of us can afford? Everybody put your hand up that can afford to lose 41% of your hard to find help in the first 2 years. Any takers?
Or annually. And that's what's sad is, do the folks on our call tonight, do they know what their turnover rate is? Are they comfortable with it? And if they're not, what are you doing to fix it? If you're throwing money at it, you're finding out they're still leaving. When somebody quits yeah, that's right. When somebody quits your organization, what they're saying is the unknown is better than staying with you. Think about what I just said. That's exactly what they're saying. They're going to the unknown, but it's better than staying with you. And it festered inside of them for a while. They just didn't wake up this morning and say, I'm quitting. No, it festered inside of them. Whether it's a cashier, whether it's a salesperson, whether it's a parts person or a tech, it festered inside, or any business. And if you don't know why your people are leaving, you can't fix that problem. And you have to know.
When I put this out there, I said, we're going to challenge conventional wisdom on what we think of attracting, onboarding, and retaining quality technicians, okay? That statement you just made, we've always heard the phrase, and most of us buy into it. They stay because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. But clearly, 41 out of 100 said, you know what? I don't know if this parachute's going to open, but I'm jumping out of this plane.
That's it.
I mean, that's huge. I want to get to a couple of comments here. Mike Vogel says, George, your statements are spot on. Technician shortage can almost always fall back on the dealership's responsibility. Totally unacceptable. We need to take ownership not only of our successes, but of our failures. And look, effective leaders know that if something doesn't get done, it falls back on us.
That's it.
It falls back on us because there's something that we missed in either the hiring, the recruiting, the onboarding, if there is even onboarding.
Yep.
Right? How many people don't onboard?
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Well,
And he says that technician loss almost mirrors the customer loss over the first 2 years. Scary that dealerships either ignore or don't realize how poorly they're treating their people and customers. And Paul Machine says most don't really pay attention to that metric because it's business as usual. Next hire. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No. I mean, I'm a baby boomer. I call us the gray hairs and the no hairs. You know what I mean? And
totally.
We live to work. This generation works to live, and maybe they got it right. They want that work-life balance. They want to be part of something. Many of us on this call, we grew up in a time where mom and dad had the same last name. Mom stayed at home, and we had one car. That is not the family of today. It's not even close.
Nope.
I just read an article that only 7% of adults are married in the U.S. right now. And in this late 60s, early 70s, it was like 79%. It's completely different. A good friend of mine, Eric Chester, who's written many books, his first book was called Employing Generation Y. And even back then in the late 90s, his statistic, 2% of that generation in the late 90s, one or both parents were incarcerated. Think about that. When I was a kid, I knew a kid who knew a kid who knew a kid who knew a kid whose dad was in jail. That's the closest I ever got to it. Nowadays, it's in our face. We hear about it every day. We hear it in the school systems. Some of these students that are getting in trouble, they don't have both parents. And a lot of times they may not even have one good parent. But you spend more time with these young people than anybody else in their life, 40 to 50 hours a week. And if you can't make them feel like they're part of something, they're going somewhere else. How much time does it take for you to go down into your service department or your place of business and just shake hands and say hello and learn a little bit about the people that work for you? Or walk into the shop as a service manager one day with a bunch of $15 Subway coupon or gift cards and say, thanks for all you do. Have lunch on me. Done. It goes back to this generation. We've been giving them a trophy for last place since they were 6 years old, when we should have said, pick another sport. You know what I mean? And now they show up at work and they want a prize. Well, your prize is your paycheck. Well, that's not good enough. But so we got to do those things. And we on this call, we created that generation. You know what I mean?
It all comes back to us. Everything comes back to us, man.
And when we were those damn kids, and now these are those damn kids, there's nothing wrong with this generation. They're great people. They just think differently than we do, just like when we were younger, and they use technology different. But their commitment to us is different. They also want to commit to their personal life, where many of us, we live to work.
It's up to us to learn their language.
That's correct.
Because there's more of them.
Yes.
Than us.
And there is.
And we need them.
Yes.
They need us too, but we need them before they need us. That's how I look at it.
Well, and let's be honest, they don't still understand our humor. We don't understand theirs. How many of us on this call this evening sent an innocent text only to be misinterpreted on the other end, and we spent the next 24 hours apologizing for something we didn't do wrong? That's because somebody didn't see it the way we saw it, or you posted something on social media and now you're on the 6 o'clock news. Well, I don't do social media because people I didn't like 30 years ago, I'm not going to like today.
if it wasn't for business, I probably wouldn't be on it. But social media is an integral part of what we do in business, and it brings us lots of customers. We built a tribe,
Yep.
but there's also a downside. So you have to work at keeping the positive side of social
Yes, you
media in
do.
front of you,
Yep.
because there's a lot of stuff that could pull you into that rabbit hole, and that's a very deep hole. Once you get sucked into the vortex,
Once
some
you get
people don't
sucked
come
in,
out.
they never come out. And even when I talked about technicians and employees in social media, it's the same thing with customers. You know,
Yeah,
hard customers are hard to find, but they're even harder to keep. And sometimes it's the little things. It's not the big things. And I used to have a friend that used to say anybody can do the big things. It's those people that can do the little dumb things. They're the ones who are successful. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of listening, not waiting to talk. Those are two different skill sets. You know what I mean?
Listening to understand or listening to respond are totally different things.
That's right.
We have preconceived notions,
Yep.
and we listen for the trigger words. I say
That's
we
it.
collectively, right? We
Yep.
listen for the trigger words to dismiss, to say, oh no, we got that covered already. We
Yep.
don't need that. We don't need you. I want to get to a couple of comments here.
If you didn't
Mike,
need us, why are you on the call today?
but it's like that when you go into a store. It's the same,
It is. Yep.
Mike Vogel says tools are a huge expense. Dealers need to supply tools that can become a tax over time.
Yep.
That's
So
tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff.
So there's a lot of things going on right now. We at ASE have a U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship that we're rolling out here in Houston and Phoenix and then around the country, and also one for medium heavy duty truck. I've worked for a few companies, and then in the old AYES days, the employer would buy the tools, and then there would be an agreement between that entry level tech and the employer. If you stay with me for 2 years, they're yours. You leave any time before that, they're mine. And what that does is it helps foster that loyalty. One morning, that kid may get up and he's mad or had a bad day or whatever, and he goes, I quit. On his way out, he goes, oh, wait, I don't have any tools. I'm over it. I'm back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Rant over.
That's it. And even though we all love certain brands of tools, when you're first starting out as an entry level, let's keep the investment to a minimal and ask these entry level folks to provide the basic set of tools to do the job day to day, and then help guide them, because many of them just got finished with school. They're starting with a lower salary, and they're trying to survive and grow within your organization, and there's only a certain amount of debt anybody can handle, and the tool thing is really important. And I think for good employers, if you come up with a tool program that is part of your hiring package, and it works for your company and those individuals, that's a great place to start. Take that burden off of that young individual. That's part of that fostering the loyalty. And let's be honest, when that student starts, or that entry level person starts to be productive, that tool set's more than going to pay for itself pretty quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
Well, we just saw $172,000, right?
Yep. And with our starter set of tools that we give multiple options for tool sets from all of the different vendors, and they should be the same set. The only thing we like them to have a choice on is the color of their box. Let them pick their color. You know what I mean?
I want the shiny red one.
Yep. It's amazing what colors are out there though now. It's unbelievable.
A nice blue one.
There's blue and there's lime green and there's all kinds of stuff. But tools are a thing, and I know that some companies that recruit already are doing this. Some of the major fleets are doing some of this. Some of the major fleets are also doing tool reimbursement on a quarterly basis and stuff like that.
Makes a lot of sense.
Different things. You know what I mean?
I want to get to a couple of comments. Roger Gutierrez says hire for attitude, train for skill.
Agreed.
You can't teach attitude,
You can't.
but
You
you can
can't.
teach skill.
You can't. So my son's a diesel tech and went to a school, and when he showed up for his interview, not only did he have his transcripts, but he had his attendance. You know what I mean? And when I review for a scholarship, and a lot of times on the transcripts it talks about their attendance and their absences. Many school districts, though, or high schools especially, have taken that off the transcripts, and that's sad because that's a true
Why would you
indicator.
do that?
Well, because either it's not good or it's time consuming. But I don't care if you're the valedictorian. If you only can show up to school 90% of the time, you're not worth much to me. But if
Right.
you're a kid that has a perfect attendance and is a B or a C or barely a C, I can work with you.
Yeah.
And back to the attitude, it's all about that. And we call those employability skills. And those a lot of times are the skills that don't allow these young people to get past the interview because they don't possess those skills. They literally come out in an interview and nobody's going to take a chance on an individual who can't look you in the eye or can't tell you why they're reliable or even shake your hand. You know what I mean?
It's a different generation that communicates differently. They didn't have it the way we had it.
No, but back to the public education system, they make a lot of times they make tardies acceptable. Nobody writes the kids up anymore. And if a parent drives them to school and they're late, who cares? You know what I mean? And so if it's not part of that school's culture, then that trait already exists. And they think that showing up on time is not important. Then they go to work and come late 3 times for you and you fire them and now they're mad at you.
Yeah,
No.
that whole accountability piece is missing. I mean, not having the attendance in
Yeah.
the transcript, that's like
That's
the
ridiculous.
used car buyers that delete appraisals they don't buy. If you don't have a true look to book, you
That's
don't
it.
know what you're missing. And you
Yep.
can't fix something that you don't know is broken because you've hidden that problem.
That's it. And so to me, when I review scholarships and other things, those are the things I'm looking for. I'm looking for your attendance. I'm also looking if you had a rough freshman year. Come on, most of us had a rough freshman year,
Not
but your
me.
grades progressed year over year. Yeah, I'm good. But if all of a sudden, in your middle of your junior year, you woke up one morning and said, "Nah, I'm taking a different path," and your grades went in the toilet, I don't care where you're ranked. It's that consistency that you're moving positive and not
Right.
moving negative. We've all had bad days, but
You can
those that
work
are moving,
around that. If you
yes,
know what it is, you can address and work around it. Let me get to a couple of comments. Mike Vogel says defined pay increases by certification levels and longevity should be offered and explained as well. That's what I interviewed a dealer in Aruba recently, and that's what they do. They're big believers in education and tying compensation to reward those technicians
yes,
for that education because everybody wins, right?
everybody wins,
They
and
could do more work.
it's measurable. That's what it is. You
Bam.
can't manage what you don't measure. So let's
Yep.
be honest. If you're an OE and you need that student or that entry level person to have certain certifications,
Yep.
boom, you take these courses online, you get these certifications. I'm going to do this for you. Also, many of the OEs offer their training
Wait,
in the
wait,
high schools
wait, hold on.
now.
And do it.
Do it.
Not
Yep.
just say you're going to do it, but
But
lay it
do it.
out for them. Explain the benefit, what's in it for you, what's in
Yep.
it for us, what's in it for the organization, and do it because that way they understand, you know what? I can trust you, George,
That's
because
right.
you've laid this out for me. You've
Yep.
explained what the benefit is and what the growth pattern is, and
Yep.
you're helping me achieve something better for myself and my family. That's
So
respect.
that's it. So in our apprenticeship, it's not time based. It's not like, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000. Ours is competency based. When the student demonstrates a certain number of competencies 3 times to a proficiency level by the mentor, the person who works for the employer. They
Yeah.
get a pay raise. It's all predetermined. Until you get to that point, there's no pay raise. The same thing with ASEs. We have many companies. For each ASE, there is a pay raise. And certain companies, when you become master, there's a huge pay raise. And when I say huge, some of them are between $3 and $5.50 an hour on an hourly rate. That's an $11,000 a year raise. Okay? But once again, it's a third-party credential. Yes, and then some of the OEs have their own internals. But put together these programs for these young people. They're okay with setting goals. And
Yeah.
to your point, Paul, the moment they hit that goal, give them the raise and recognize it. Make it a big deal.
Because it
Okay?
is a big
Make
deal.
it a big deal. That's it. You bet.
Wow.
Because they're looking for that trophy for last place.
Yeah. Joe
Yep.
Clementi, hiring the technician is an investment. The larger the investment, the bigger the dividends.
That's correct.
No joke.
Yes. No joke. But here's the other thing too, is if you have programs in your community and you're not working with them, we've developed an adopt a school program to teach industry how to work with their local school. But if you're not working with your local school and drawing from that pool, that makes your investment a little bit less because that person already lives in your community and they already know who you are as a business, and their parents may do business with you. That is a great way to grow your own. And by growing your own in that community, now year after year, you can continue to grow from that same pool as you grow your workforce. And we have a dealer here in Houston that's been working with one or two high schools for over 2 decades. And almost every one of the techs was once an intern, that now a mentor, but they all literally almost came from that same school. And then they went on to the manufacturer's program and they're there and they're growing their business. Yep. And there's a common thread between all of them.
It's a long game.
It's a long
Right.
game.
It's like marketing.
Yes.
People expect to sign up for marketing or a program. They expect to walk over, flip the switch, and all the lights come on. It doesn't work that way.
No,
You
why
have
do
to,
you think
you have to till the land before anything grows.
Why do you think we have farm teams? Why do you think we have varsity, junior varsity, freshmen? We have all this growth that we have to do. It's the same thing with our technician. It's the same thing with any of your employees.
Yeah.
Every employee provides a value to your company, or you wouldn't have them in your place of business. Don't take any of them for granted. And it's really important just to know a little bit about them. You know, their children's name, or even their dog's name, or what do they like? You know what I mean? It's amazing what some of your employees do in their spare time. And you'll find that many of them probably are involved in community service and you didn't know that. And sometimes just you supporting something that they're involved with indirectly is huge.
And it could be anything at any age. It's not just the young person coming in.
No,
This is
it's not.
across the board. Okay. I'll give you an
Across the board.
example. My friend, I listen to all kinds of music, everything from classical concertos to violins to heavy metal to German heavy metal. My friend worked for a dealership and her boss found out a little bit about what she likes, what she doesn't like. Well, guess what? For Christmas, he gave her 2 tickets to Rammstein, a German heavy metal band that both she and I really enjoy. We've
Right.
seen 3 of their concerts together. But here's here's a dealership, a general manager who takes the time to get to know his employees
That's it.
and incentivize them in such a way that's meaningful to them, right?
Yep.
Those tickets, we had the best time, and those are memories that are in here
That's
and in
it.
here forever. What did the tickets really cost out of pocket compared to what does it cost in these 2 areas?
That's correct.
Huge.
And I have a good friend, and he's always said, we're never looking for a cookie, but it sure does taste good when we get one. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And every one of us, the things we're talking about, they're important to us. But sometimes we can't return the favor, or as they call it, pass it forward. Your people out there are your people, and they have families, and they have things in their lives that are positive. They have things in their lives that may not be positive. And sometimes just somebody of authority coming by and saying, "Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for what you're doing," is really all that they ever need. It
Yeah.
truly is. Just like our children sometimes, you know, sometimes they gravitate to other people, neighbors or others, or parents of a friend because they get something that we don't give them. And it's not because we don't love them, it's because we don't think about those things.
Right.
What- and it's those little cookies. You know what I mean? And
Totally.
look at our grandchildren. Those of us that have grandchildren, if I knew how great grandchildren were, I would have skipped the children completely. You know what I mean? but
There's
it's
kind
those,
of a connection there, man.
yeah, there is. But it's those little things that we do for our grandchildren. Well,
Yeah.
let's treat our employees sometimes the same way. I'm not saying spend $1 million, but a little investment, a little gift card, a little thank you goes a long way. You know what I mean?
Hey, my parents never had a lot of money,
Right.
but the vivid memories that I have growing up
Yep.
is my dad at every school event in the back of the auditorium waving the newspaper at me to make sure that he saw they were there. They were there for everything. And guess what? I was there for everything in my kids' education.
That's right.
And
Yep.
I'm in the car business. I've been in the car business. And
Yep.
my employers knew, hey, you know what? Saturday, Paul's coming in at 11 because his daughter plays soccer that day.
And
No, it wasn't
and
any good, but
right.
I was there and she enjoyed it and she knew that I was there.
Unfortunately, when I left teaching and went in and started doing the things that I did, I was out trying to help more of other people's kids. And I tell people my job today, I, I'm influencing the lives of people that I'll never meet, and somebody's paying me to do it.
That's
It doesn't
huge.
get any better than that. But my kids didn't get me at those events all the time. And don't think I don't think about those things, because it is important. It is important as they grow up. And now with my granddaughters, you bet. It's it. And you know, sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to figure out the importance of family. Sometimes we get it right off the bat. But once again, at the beginning of the show, when you spend 40 or 50 hours a week with these people in your business, and they are your business, they are your brand, they
Yeah,
echo who you are.
they're your family.
They're your family. And a little time with them, because how much time do you spend with your real family? You know what I mean? And many times you don't like them.
You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family, right?
That's it.
Let me get to a couple of comments. Ed Chipalowsky, students must be taught by industry standards and procedures using VR, AR, which are connected and partnered with the OEM and fleets.
Yes.
And Eric says, good evening, gentlemen. Important topic. Very, very important topic. And it's something, you know what? I try to bring on the things that people aren't necessarily talking about because they're important, you know, and those little things that we talked about that were incentives that were given to us, friends
Yep.
of ours, people that you know, how
Yep.
you impact people that many of which you'll never meet. Those are really key things because you can use those little nuggets tomorrow when you go into
Right.
your store and you say hi to somebody that maybe you haven't spent much time with, and you'll
That's
learn
right.
a little bit about them. You'll learn what they like, what their hobbies are, what their interests are. Maybe you surprise them with, hey, if somebody's into fishing, maybe you connect with the family. Say, hey, listen, George doesn't know this, but I'd like to have. I know how much he enjoys fishing. I'd like to have you guys be able to go away on a weekend. Okay,
Yep.
I want you to coordinate it. Don't tell them we had this conversation, but I want you to coordinate that fishing trip. Okay,
Right.
give me an idea as to what that might run.
Yep.
Okay, and how do you think George will be when on Friday afternoon, George finds out that he's going to go fly fishing at a particular lake somewhere or wherever they do fly fishing. I'm not a fisher,
Yep.
so sorry if I screwed up the details. But how excited do you think George will be with your company when he finds out that you went above and beyond what he expected so that he and his family can enjoy that weekend? What's that really cost, right? We step over dollars to pick up pennies.
And the other thing, even if you just started off with $100 gift card and, hey, can you take your significant other out to dinner on me? I appreciate what you do. And to Ed knows this better than I do. When you're in a school, kids a lot of times walk with their heads down because nobody says hello. Whenever I walk into school and I make eye contact, I say hello, how are you? And those kids brighten up because nobody says a word to them.
Yeah.
They just wander through school. And the same thing with your place of business. If I'm in somebody's business and I make eye contact, I say, hello, how are you? It's those little things. Even if there's no more conversation than that, you acknowledge that they exist and you just didn't put your head down and turn away. No. Yep.
Let me tell you something. That works in all facets
Everything.
of life. Okay. I'll give you a for instance. My friend lives in Massachusetts. I met her in a Facebook group. We knew a lot of the same people. She and her family were moving to the East Coast. We got to be really good friends. And I've gone in a couple of times and spent a few days at their home, right? And we went to Salem, Massachusetts, not far from there. We do the food tour, and there was a coffee guy that was there, and it looked like a caveman, really. But I said hi to the guy. He looked kind of funny, like, why is this person saying hi to me? And he didn't have a smile on his face or anything, but I said hi to him. I went to talk to him. I said, hey, you know what? I do this crazy thing. It's called the random stranger selfie. I want you to be in my random stranger selfie. We're going to take a picture, you and I, and post it on social media. That guy had a smile ear to ear, and we had a conversation. That's just some random stranger. Imagine how much power, if the power that had to take a guy that was standing there. Imagine the power of that in your store with your people that know who your name is, but they may not know you because you've not spent the time to get to know them.
Well, funny story. I'm originally from New Jersey, but when I was old enough to know better, I left. Exit 9. I tell people the best thing coming out of Jersey is I-95 South. But anyway, my best friend from high school still lives there. And when I used to come to visit in the younger days and we'd go into the city, I make eye contact with somebody. I say hello. And after a while, he just smacked me on the shoulder and go, quit doing that. You're going to get us killed.
It's true, though. People don't expect that, but it's infectious. People smile back.
They do.
All right, we're getting behind. I'm getting behind on comments here. Mike Vogel says treatment with respect along with inclusion helps retain 30 plus years of leadership, and I never placed an ad for a technician. Bam!
That's
Word of mouth is huge in the technician network. It is beyond huge. James Balconis, welcome, says this sounds like a mid-level management problem. How does someone get to be a service manager? Technician fix cars, managers fix people. We got Jeff Daniel, one of my SDL brothers, says, as much as we blame the techs for leaving the industry, remember we created the issues. It's up to us to fix them.
That's correct.
Yes, 100%. Just like we invite in the disruptors, that's our fault. We caused the technicians to leave. Mike Vogel says, Paul Meijer, we have to adapt for our customers to be successful. Why not adapt for our techs and teams?
That's right.
1,000%. Michael Dean Offmuth. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, Michael Dean Offmuth. Great to see you, man. And Joe Clementi says, providing tools, career paths, training plans, competitive pay, and culture connects the tech to a team. It's not just a job, it's a team.
That's correct.
And William Green says, techs need to be interviewing the employer as well. culture is big in today's industry. I think some of that interviewing comes in the form of social media and what their friends say about that place. Is that, oh, that place is a revolving door. You don't want to go there. Or if you go there, this is what you can get them for.
Yep.
But don't give them too much of yourself here.
So one of my closest friends is two-time U.S. Nationals champion in pro stock motorcycle, Steve Johnson. He's #1 in the points right now. He does a great presentation at schools about branding yourself after the diploma. And he's sitting in a classroom with 40 students and says, what separates you from the rest of the folks in this room that's going to make me want to hire you? And what we have to remember is each one of us is a brand. We look at each other when they walk down the street and we form an opinion. Until you open the mouth, you either confirm or deny it.
Yeah.
But also the same thing with your customers and your people you interview. We have to remember that each one of our people is a brand. Now, mind you, they fall under our brand, but they have their own brand and their own personality. And it is important to learn a little bit about them. And if they're, especially those that are working in a team, I mean, I can't tell you folks, you know better than I do. One little bad apple and the cart loses all the wheels and the apple's spoiled before you get them to market. And it's important just to understand who these individuals are. And when we talked earlier a little bit about mentor selection should never be your best tech. It should be somebody who's been in our industry 4 or 5 years and been with you at least a year. Somebody who's already involved in some youth activities, or it's Friday afternoon at 4:30 and Miss Smith pulls up in the service drive and she's one of your best customers. Who are you going to ask to stay? That's probably your mentor. It's not the guy that's your flat rate guy and nobody talks to him until midday on Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Toolbox is already locked. It's 4:30.
It's already locked. Yeah. So, and you want somebody who appreciates our industry and your company. You want somebody who's going to portray this industry as a positive because you're trying to grow your workforce, not kill them.
Yeah.
So we forget those things.
Paul Machine says it's an art today to properly engage.
It is.
William Green, my last week of my diesel tech education was all about the interview process. Do schools still do this today? If so, if not, they should. Do they teach interviewing skills in the schools today? Do you know?
It's in the curriculum. It's part of our accreditation, but some schools do it very well.
Yeah.
Some schools don't do it good. Now, here's the thing too, and Ed will understand this completely. And if I upset somebody, I don't care. How's that? But
that's life.
That's life. But your interview skills that you're learning are only as good as the person teaching them to you. So if they don't possess those skills, then how can they pass them on to you? So a lot of times they have to be trained of what those skills are and what has changed over the years, especially if they haven't had to apply for a job in 20 years,
Because if the workforce has changed, so has the communication style for that workforce. And that's where we need to be on top of our game to always learn what the latest communication method is.
And the biggest thing that stops young people is these online applications.
Oh, they're worthless.
I recommend to all employers that if you're going to hire somebody or have a job posted, you go fill out the application yourself and see if you get through the chutes. If you can't get through the chutes, how do you expect these kids to? Yeah. But also, somebody from your company, if you're recruiting, needs to explain to these students, whether it's an HR person or whoever, of what is involved in an online application and that they can't leave any boxes empty. Nobody teaches that. And if you don't teach them, many qualified people that could be working for you today never got through the chute because they didn't check a box, or your HR people put in some other things in the application that you were not anticipating, and those people don't meet that criteria, so they didn't get to sit in front of you. So
Yeah, that's
once
a
again,
crime.
yeah, apply for the job that you're hiring for and see if you get through the chute. How's that?
Paul Machine says the best techs are the ones you raise. Sponsorships and internships increase loyalties.
Yes.
Mike
So
Larkin, I always believe in the win-win-win process. The business wins, the tech wins, and most importantly, the customer wins.
the customer wins. On this competition that I do for diesel techs called Super Tech, we also have one called Future Tech. And many of the students who were sponsored by fleets to participate in this competition still work for those fleets today. It's very powerful. It's a small investment that somebody made in this individual while they were at school to showcase their skills on a national stage. And those people are still working for them today. There's a lot to be said about a minor investment with a maximum return, but it's got
Yeah.
to be looked at as an investment and not a cost.
Ed Chipalowsky says Paul Machine sponsorship is the most important since many school districts can't afford the cost of new equipment for the students to learn on.
Agreed.
Man, that couldn't be any more true.
Yep.
And Joe Clementi says the right culture multiplies, so does the wrong culture. Positive cultures spread enthusiasm, negative cultures spread discourse. That's why sometimes you need to cut the head off the snake.
That's it.
To kill that.
Back to my earlier comment. If you can't see your children or your grandchildren working in your shop, neither can I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Paul Machine says that's true, Ed. And Steve Apicella, Paul, thank you for helping to cast the spotlight on the important details of dealer experience internally and externally before, during, and after the vehicle sale. Oh, man, I love this guy. Steve, you are the best, man. I appreciate your friendship and your continual support, man. And Paul Machine says a strong mentor program includes incentives for their mentees' growth and success. Yes. Yes.
Big part, but also the mentor. The mentor should never be negatively impacted financially for helping you grow your business. Duh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
If they're going to grow your workforce for you, they shouldn't lose any money. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know, and we don't look at those things. And then you wonder why nobody wants to be a mentor or the mentor gets mad. You know what I mean? Yep.
Mike Vogel says, thank you, George and Paul. Excellent show. George provided lots of great information. Wow. Man, we're over time already. You know, every week, like I think the hours are getting shorter and shorter.
They are. Yep. Yeah, Mickey Mouse isn't 60 minutes anymore.
No, definitely not. George, I want to thank you, man. This has been a great episode. Some things that people don't. This is not on the forefront of what people think about. Nope. They complain about.
Yes.
Right? Because we all hear it. Oh, I can't find techs. I can't keep techs. We've all heard the complaints, but we haven't heard how can we fix it.
Once again, in our almost 2,200 accredited schools, you can go to our website, aseeducationfoundation.org, find a program, put in a zip code, a mileage range, and it lists every. We impacted over 126,000 students last year. Help me understand.
Powerful.
That's huge. They're in your neighborhood. They're in your communities. And more importantly, your tax dollars are paying for those programs. You should be benefiting from the results.
As always, we tend to remember what we forgot to ask when we had the opportunity to do so. George is tagged in this post. It's my post. So if anybody remembers what they forgot to ask during this show, please, by all means, reach out to George, reach out to myself. The conversation is free. We're happy to connect. If you're not connected with George, definitely connect with him, because the more we know about our industry and the better we get it, all the different parts of it. You know, LinkedIn is a big networking community. You don't always have to know it. You just need to know somebody that does. And by expanding your network with valuable people that add value, I'm not talking about having 40,000 connections with 35,000 of them not relevant to what you do. Many of them don't even speak the same language as you. physically or metaphorically.
Agreed.
So it's not about the number, it's about the quality. So
That's
if you
it.
remember something, by all means, reach out to us. I thank you guys and gals for tuning in. Oh, we've got a couple here. Michael Dean Othman said, thank you guys. And LinkedIn user, which I think is Lamont, says, thank you guys. I appreciate the support every week. If you see value in what we discuss on the show, by all means, share it with your network. If it's one person that you help to get a little bit better, then I feel good, because then we've achieved our goal. George, thank you so much for spending your Sunday night with us, man. And don't go away when we sign off here.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend and be safe.
Happy 4th of July again. Don't eat too much barbecue tomorrow. Be careful with the fireworks. Have a safe and successful week next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks again.